Hi everyone, this is Charlotte from the Bursary Foundation. I hope you're having a good day. I'm here with Jenny and we're going to be talking about percentages.
Hi everyone.
So, Jenny, you were just saying to me before we started filming that percentages are not your favourite thing.
Not my favourite thing though.
So, why is it that you don't like them very much?
I think I've probably got memories of scary questions about, items of clothes in sales and if they've got 10% off one week and then 15%
Hmm.
off the next week. I just remember finding it difficult at school. That's probably why I don't really like it these days.
Yeah, they are one of those question types that can get a little bit complicated if you're not really careful with, like we've discussed in some of our other videos, writing things down, I think.
Yeah.
Um, there's a few tips and tricks that we can use and ways of thinking about different methods that I think are probably quite helpful there. So, one of the things that I've done is written down a bunch of really common
Mm.
percentages over here. I am not going to read all those out to you. If you want to take notes of them, you can pause the video here and write them down yourselves because no one wants to see me just read out a table for 5 minutes.
But it might be quite good to learn that. So you could always do a
Yeah,
screenshot and print that off and put it up on your wall somewhere. I think that'd be
yeah,
really good to learn.
definitely. Or doing things like snap games and pairs games that you can
Yeah.
play. That's a great family game as well because everyone needs percentage knowledge
Yeah.
from like year 3 through to year 11. So stuff
Mm.
like that could be a good family activity for a bit of revision. The major thing to remember is this idea that a percentage is always out of 100%. And the easiest way to think about solving it is to do it as a fraction. So if I've got
Mm.
66%, that's the same as 66 out of 100. If I've got 40%, that's 40 out of 100. Or if you simplify it down, that's the same as saying 4/10 of something.
Mm.
You could also use your memorized fractions over here to work things out a bit more quickly. So if you know that 25% is the same as a quarter, you can just divide something by 4 to find 25%. And it makes it a bit quicker than doing your divide by 100 times by 25 method. So for the fractions where you can't just do a simple divide by 4 or divide by 5 and what have you, there's a couple of different methods that we can use. So the first one is to use the fraction method. So we divide by the denominator, which in this case is 100, and then we multiply by the numerator, which is whatever percentage you've been given. So for instance, find 22% out of 150, I'd do 150 divided by 100 and then multiply the result by 22.
So dividing by 100 tells you what 1% is.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Whereas dividing by 10 would tell you what 10% is.
Yeah, precisely. I can do the same thing over here. So for 35%, I'll divide by 30. Oops, sorry, I types that. I've just realized that should be 35 over 100.
Mm.
So for this one, we're going to do 35 over 100. Well, that's the same as saying 500 divided by 100 for 1%, and then 5 times 35 will get us the answer. So the pros and cons of this method is it's very, very reliable. You can use it to find literally any percentage. Okay. Like you apply that method to any number in a percentage, you could have like 36.25% and you'd
Yeah.
get the same result. It's reliable. But sometimes when you're doing it with mental maths, it can give you numbers that aren't necessarily easy to work with.
Yeah.
So, for instance, in my exam, I'd probably feel quite happy doing a quick bit of column multiplication for 5 times 35, but 1.5 times 22, I wouldn't necessarily feel as happy with.
Mm.
Okay, so it can produce some slightly tricky numbers to work with. If you're looking at something, you think, oh, this is going to produce something that's going to be just a complete pain to do column multiplication with, this is where method number 2 becomes really useful. So what I've done with this one is I've split my percentage up into 2 different sections, looking at the tens column and the ones column. So 22% would be the exact same thing as saying 20% add 2%. 20 plus 2 equals 22. Easy maths for us. So what I can then do is work out these two percentages separately and add the result together. So for instance, 20% is a really nice, easy one to find. You can either divide by 10 and multiply by 2, or if I've remembered that 20% is actually the same as saying 1/5 of something, then I can just divide 150 by 5 to get 30. For 2%, I'll do the 150 divided by 100 gives me 1.5 times 2, which is 3. Doing 30 plus 3 here is much, much easier than doing 1.5 times 22. They both get me the same result of 33, but this one is a much simpler addition for me to do in my head. We can also apply it over here. So for instance, I've said 35% is the same thing as doing 30% plus 5%. So 30% of 500 is nice and easy to find because I just do 500 divided by 10, which gives 50, and then I can multiply that by 3 to get 150. For 5%, I'm going to do 500 divided by 20 because I know that 5 goes in to 120 times. Or you could do divide by 100, multiply by 5. Either way, that gives me 25, and then I can do 150 plus 25, which is going to get me 175. So the thing with this method is it breaks it down and gives you much easier numbers to work with. But with this one on the right hand side, for instance, that was really time consuming. Right? It takes you a while to write all of this out, and if you're not feeling as confident with remembering things like for 5% I just divide by 20, it can take you quite a while to do this. So it's kind of a case of just looking at the question and looking at what you've got to deal with and saying to yourself, which one of these is going to give me the simplest numbers and the simplest method to work with. For 22%, I much prefer method number 2 because I can find 20% and 2% really easily, and then I've just got an addition. For 35% of 500, well, dividing by 100 and multiplying by 35 actually gives me some fairly simple numbers to work with anyway, so it's not necessarily worthwhile doing the longer method number 2 over here. So what do you think of those two methods, Jenny? Do you have a preference, or can you see sort of a pros?
No, I think you're right. I think it depends on the numbers that you've got in the question.
Yeah, definitely. So keep those in mind. If you want, what you can do now is pause the video and have a go at making up some of your own percentages, apply some of these different methods, and see how well they work for some of the different numbers you come up with. Either you've unpaused the video or you've just looked at me watching the screen for a few seconds, either way. So let's have a quick peek at some applied percentage-based questions then. I'm really sorry, Jenny, this is the kind of thing that you told me that you dreaded at school. We only have to actually worry about 2 percentages here though, so it's not too bad. Okay.
Yeah.
So with these tables of information, as with any problem solving, it's super important that you go through and work out exactly what the question is asking you. I've got 2 parts to this question here. So I can see that the first part wants for the cheapest per blind. So in other words, what's the cheapest shop just to buy 1 blind in? And then what is the cheapest price if I want to buy 6 blinds? So we need to think about not only which one has the cheapest single blind, but which one has the best offer for all of them. Okay, so now we've gone through these quickly and Jenny's back, let's have a think about what exactly we need to do here. So I'm not going to bother about B to start with. I'm just going to focus on A. So I can see that for shop A, the normal cost of one blind is £89, but they've got 45% off. So that's going to be 45% off everything. For B, similarly, it would ordinarily be £60, but they've got a blank 25% off. C, one blind is £49, so there are no deals at all. D is £50 for a single blind, but they've got a deal for multiple blinds. Well, that's not any use to me if I'm just looking at one blind anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that. And for E, I've got £48 per blind and 3 for £140. So this bit here is going to be useful for question 2, but we don't really need to worry about it for the first part of the question. So really for question number 1, all I need to do is think about these two percentages here. So let's start working that off then. So I've got £89 and I need to work out 45% off. So Jenny, what do you think is the first thing we'd need to do to find 45% off of 89?
So we could work out what 5% of 80. Well, there's many ways to do it, aren't there, really? So we could work out 5% and then 45% and take that off.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could say that, well, the actual cost of the blind is going to be 55% of the 89 because that's what's left. But either way, I think we need to start by working out what 5% of 89 is.
All right, so let's do that. So 5% of 89. So to find 5%, the easy way to do this is divide by 20 or divide by 10 and half that number. I'm going to do
they're not nice numbers, are they?
Yeah, I'm going to do the second one here because dividing by 10 and halving is much easier.
Yeah.
So if I do 10%, that's really easy. I know that's 8.9.
Yeah.
So 5% is 8.9 divided by 2. So if I do 8 divided by 2, that gives me 4. 9 divided by 2 is 4 remainder 1. That then gives me, if I carry over, a 10 to divide, so 4, 5. I could also think of it as 9 divided by 2 is 4.5 if I need to.
Yeah, maybe easier to think about it in pounds and pence, actually. So remember you got £8.90, so 90p divided by 2 is 45p.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if I want to find 45% then, what we could do is say, well, I need to do 9 times 5%. I'm not sure if I want to do 9 times 4.45 looking at it. So let's find 40% if we're doing it the percent where we're finding 45% off. So I've already got 10% in order to find 5%. Okay. So I'm going to say, well, 10% times 4 is 40%. So if I just do 8.9 times 4, that gives me something that's slightly easier to work with than 9 times 4.45.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the multiplication in my head quickly. So 9 times 4 is 45. So I'm going to have 4 carried
36.
over.
36.
Yeah. Sorry, Jenny, can you repeat that for me?
36. 9 times 4.
Yeah, so
we made a mistake.
I did make a mistake. I'm thinking about my 5s too much here, aren't I? Right, so let's do that again. You know what? I'm getting it messed up in my head here, so I'm going to set it out as a proper...
Set it out as a column. It's column multiplication. Yeah. Which in an exam, I think, if you can't do it in your head or keep those numbers in your head, it's always better to just write a quick sum down.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So if then I've got 8.9 multiplied by 4, 9 4s, as you say, are 36.
Yeah.
Carry that 3 over. And then 4 times 8 is 28. Yep. Add 3. 32.
32.
32,
We're making all the
32.
mistakes today.
I can't do maths today, apparently. So 32 add 3
Right,
is
plus 3.
35. No. Goodness me. I do apologise, everyone. I've got some roadworks going on outside my window and it's a little bit difficult to think at the moment. So it's always good fun. We can live with it. So I know then that 45% of 89 is going to be 35.6 add 4.45 because we've worked out 40% and we've worked out 5%. Okay. So once again, I'm going to set that up in a slightly easier way. So I've got 4.45. So with my addition, I know I'm going to have, well, that's 35.60 really. So I've got 0 plus 5 is 5, 6 plus 4 is 10. So I'm going to have to carry a 1 over to the other side of the decimal place. 5 plus 4 plus 1 is 10 once again, carrying that over. And then 5 plus 1 is 4. So we get 40.05 is 45%. Now, this is 45% off. So the final thing that we're going to have to do, yeah, exactly, is subtract it from 89. So I'm going to put that up here so I've got a bit more space to do my workings out. So I've got £89.00 subtract £40 and 5 pence. So I'm going to have to borrow from this 9 here and carry over a bit. If you lot want, you can see if you can do this quicker than I can. Borrow again, it gives me 9. 10 take away 5 is 5. 9 take away 0 is 9. And that actually makes sense because £1 take away 5 pence is going to be 95 pence. 8 take away nothing is 8. And 8 subtract 4 gives me 4. So I know that the cost of every single blind from shop A then is going to be £48 and 95 pence.
We got there in the end.
We did get there.
That's not even the answer to the question, is it?
No. This is why people don't like percentages very much.
Yeah, I think that's it. And it's,
yeah, it's understandable. Mm-hmm. But that's fine. So 60, 25% off 60, actually, that one is much.
That's a quarter, isn't it?
Yeah. So if I know that 25% is 1/4, I know that 60 divided by 4 is 15. So if I do £60 subtract £15, that gets me £45.
Yeah.
That was actually so much easier to do.
Yeah.
If you do get a question like this, where there's one part of the percentage that you know is just going to take you ages, what you could do, if you want, is do the 25% off 60 first, do some of the other workings out, and then come back to this bit at the end if needs be. If you've got a question that gives you multiple points for your answer. Unfortunately, a lot of the September 11 pluses don't do that. It's 1 point no matter how quick or long the question takes you, but it's something to think about for January. So this now means that we've got all of the information to correctly answer question A, because like we said, we don't need to worry about these last couple of deals at all. So which one is the cheapest blind then?
So it's B.
B, yeah, so very easily the answer for this one equals B. Okay, so for question B, if Mr. Cooper buys 6 blinds, which shop is cheapest? So we've done part of the workings out that we actually needed for this question because we've done all of our percentage workings out. That's actually percentages over and done with for this question. From this point onwards, we're just doing some multiplication.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I know that one blind in shop A is £48.95, I'm going to need to multiply that by 6 because I'm buying 6 of them. So I've got £48.95 multiplied by 6. I'm going to work it out really quickly on my calculator because I don't want this video to get too long, essentially. Maybe you at home can see if you can beat my calculator. Have you got it? Pause if you haven't. So the answer to that then would be £293.70. So what I'm going to do is write this down on my table next to the correct place so I've not lost track of where I need to be. Okay. Next one, I need to do 45 times 6. I can actually think of a mental maths way of doing this quickly. Can you at all, Jenny?
Times 2 times 3?
Yeah, so double 45 is 90, and then 90 times 3 is going to get us 270. If anyone else can think of any other clever mental maths ways of doing things like that, let us know.
Save so much time, don't they, those little methods?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, if you're not feeling confident in the moment, you can do your column multiplication for it, but this just makes it easier and quicker in the time. This one, I've now got 49 for shop C. No deals on there at all, so I'm just going to do 49 times 6.
Hang on, Charlotte, sorry to interrupt.
Yes?
If we know that our 45, the cost B, where a blind costs £45, we've worked out how many 6 of them cost. Mm-hmm. We know that that's going to be cheaper than 49 times 6, don't we?
That's very true. Yeah, so if you want to, actually, you could just completely discount C and say, no, that's going to be easier. That's a really good point, Jenny.
Some people might like to actually work out the answer just to be sure, but...
Yeah, that's a really good time-saving tip, actually, that one. Now, D and E is where we need to think about things a little bit more carefully. So for question D, I know that I can get 4 blinds for £179, but I need 6 blinds, so I'm going to need another 2 blinds on top of this. So the standard cost for 2 blinds for shop D is £50. So for 1 blind even is £50. So I double 50, which gives me £100. And then I'm going to add that to the 4 blinds that I can get within the deal. So I've got 100 plus 179 gives me £279 there. So that is really, really worthwhile knowing, actually, to be able to do that, because we can see that we've got something sandwiched between A and B in this instance. And once again, I'm going to write it down over here just to make sure I've not lost track. For E, so I can see I've got 3 blinds for £140. So what would that mean for 6 blinds?
So 6 must be double it, 280.
Okay. So, is B still the cheapest shop to go to or not? Yeah. It does end up as cheapest in this case. However, quite a lot of these questions will do the deals differently, so it doesn't end up as the cheapest one. So it's well worth your while checking and not just making the assumption.
Yeah.
Okay. So has that taken away any of the fear for you with percentages a bit there,
Yeah,
Jenny?
I think it's just, for me, it's writing writing stuff down. Don't try and
Mm,
keep it in your head. There's too much to keep in your head in a question like that.
there is, yeah. And it's so easy for you to do what I did and just in the moment forget what a times table is and how that
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
Because you're trying to think about so many different things that if you don't then start doing what we did over here and writing it out properly,
yeah,
then you're going to get confused. For a January exam, say you did make the daft mistake I did and you've
yeah.
not got Jenny with you to say,
Still get
Charlotte, what are
points.
you doing? 4 times 9 is 36. Actually, they can see that you've used all of your method correctly
Yeah.
and you'd still get points for it, even if you did make a silly little mistake
Mhm.
like that in there.
Yeah, it's a really good habit to get into.
Definitely. And actually, with this one, most of this question didn't take all that much work. It
Mm.
took a bit of an effort
First bit,
getting that
wasn't it?
first percentage worked out, but all of the rest of it was just a quick bit of multiplying and doubling,
Mm. Yeah.
which you know how to do. You can all do that.
Mm. Yeah,
All
great.
right.
That's really helpful.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully you'll found that useful. We've got loads of other maths videos with common exam topics out this week as well, so check out all of those. There's also one dedicated to problem solving if you want to give those skills a test. Otherwise, we'll see you all again soon.
Bye.